I'll never forget the sound of my grandpa gasping for air. We were in our 150-year-old family home when he suddenly collapsed, clutching his chest. Eyes wide with panic, I called 911, screaming for help. The ambulance was 2 minutes away, but they never made it to our door. A woman from our HOA, Karen, physically blocked the street, arms crossed, standing tall in the middle of the road like she owned the world. She told the EMTs, "You're not authorized to enter this private neighborhood without HOA." Clearance. My grandpa died 5 feet away from me while they argued. That day she didn't just stop an ambulance. She started a war, and months later, I would get the ultimate revenge by owning the very land beneath her feet. Our home wasn't just old, it was historic, built by my great-great-grandfather right after the Civil War. The house had been in our family for over 150 years. The floorboards creaked with memories. The wallpaper was peeling in places, sure, but every corner had a story. My grandpa spent his entire life here. He raised his kids here, took care of the land, the house, and all the traditions that came with it. He was tough, a Navy vet, a carpenter, the kind of man who could fix anything except his own heart. I guess I moved in to help take care of him during his final years. We weren't rich, but we had our pride, and that home was everything to us. Then the HOA came in. They called it the Neighborhood Preservation Committee, but it was just a bunch of bored, power-hungry retirees playing City Hall and leading them. Karen, I wish I were exaggerating when I say that was actually her name. Karen was the self-appointed queen of the HOA. Early 60s, pastel sweater sets, always holding a clipboard like it was a weapon. She took one look at our home, the chipped paint, the wild garden Grandpa loved, and decided we didn't fit her vision. That's when the fines started. $50 for unapproved flower beds, $100 for leaving a vintage truck in the driveway, $250 for having a non-standard mailbox. But it didn't stop there. She made it personal. At first, we thought the fines were just annoyances, stupid, petty rules made by people with too much time. But Karen wasn't just petty. She was obsessed. She started showing up daily, walking around the edge of our property with a measuring tape. Your grass is half an inch too high. That tree branch is violating shade. Regulations. Your curtain color doesn't meet uniform appearance standards. She even complained about my grandpa's porch chair. It looks old, she said. I looked at her and said, "He built that chair with his own hands after Vietnam," she replied. "Well, it's not HOA approved." That was the moment I realized this wasn't about rules, it was about control. And my grandpa, he didn't say much, but I saw it was getting to him. Every letter, every warning, every threat, it wore him down. He stopped sitting on that porch. He stopped tending his garden, the sparkle in his eyes, the one that lit up when he told stories about the house. It started to fade, and then things got worse. One morning, I caught Karen taking photos of the backyard through the fence. I told her to leave. She said, "If you can't maintain this place, maybe the HOA should take over." That wasn't a suggestion. It was a threat. 2 weeks later, Grandpa collapsed. It was early morning. I was making coffee when I heard a crash from the living room. I ran in and found Grandpa collapsed on the floor, struggling to breathe. His face was pale, one hand clutching his chest, the other reaching toward me. I froze for a second, then grabbed the phone and called 911. I was panicking, yelling into the receiver, "He's 87, he can't breathe, please, please hurry." They said help was on the way, asterisk. I opened a gate, stood out front, waiting. A few minutes later, I heard the sirens in the distance. Relief. But as the ambulance turned onto our street, it stopped. I stepped out further, and that's when I saw her. Karen, standing in the middle of the road like she owned it. She was waving her arms, yelling at the EMTs. Something about unauthorized access, private roads, and HOA rules. I screamed, "Get out of the way. That's my grandfather." But she wouldn't move, and the EMTs, they looked confused, unsure. Karen had always made it seem like she had power, like she was the law in this neighborhood. "You need HOA clearance to enter this street," she said, while my grandfather was dying inside. I couldn't believe it. I ran back in, dragged Grandpa to the door. His breathing was shallow. His eyes were glazed. Finally, the EMTs ignored her and forced their way through. But it was too late. He passed. Away an hour later at the hospital. Not because help didn't come, but because she delayed it. That moment destroyed something in me. The grief, the rage, the injustice. And I made myself a promise. I wasn't just going to fight the HOA. I was going to bury it. After the funeral, I expected some kind of apology, some recognition that what Karen did was inhumane. Instead, I got a notice from the HOA, a fine for improper emergency protocol, and causing a disturbance. I held the letter in my hand, shaking. No sympathy, no remorse. Just another cold notice, like my grandfather's life meant nothing to them. I asked around, tried to get neighbors on my side. Most were silent. Some looked scared. One whispered, "She did the same thing to my dad last year." But we didn't say anything. That's when it hit me. This wasn't just Karen. The entire HOA was protecting itself, covering for her, enabling her. They buried my complaint. The police said it was a civil matter. The HOA board refused to meet with me. And the worst part, Karen walked around like nothing happened. Same pastel sweater, same smug look. "I followed protocol," she said when I confronted her. Protocol, my grandpa's last breath, reduced to a policy line. That night, I stood on our porch, staring out at the neighborhood my grandfather helped build. The garden he planted, the trees he raised, the soil soaked with generations of our family. And I made a decision. If no one was going to stop her, I would. I just didn't know yet that my revenge would start with a land survey. A few weeks after the funeral, I got a letter in the mail. Not from the HOA, from the county assessor's office. It was routine, just an update on property lines and taxes. But as I looked closer, something caught my eye. A narrow strip of land, less than 15 feet wide, running behind several homes, including Karen's. And guess what? It wasn't owned by the HOA. It was privately held by someone who had passed away years ago. The land was in probate limbo and about to be listed for auction. I called the county office, asked questions. Turns out that land had never officially been folded into the HOA's charter, which meant Karen's property line, her backyard patio, her shed, her fence. It was technically encroaching on land she didn't own. That's when I felt it. A spark. The same kind my grandpa used to get when he fixed things no one else could. I started digging deeper. Spent nights reading HOA bylaws, county records, public land data, and legal forums. The more I looked, the more cracks I saw. Misfiled documents, improperly recorded easements. Karen had built her little empire on shaky ground, literally, and that 15-foot strip of forgotten land. I bought it, quietly, in cash. No one even noticed the sale go through. not yet. But they would. Owning that narrow strip of land gave me leverage, but I didn't stop there. I started talking to neighbors, the ones who'd been fined, threatened, silenced. At first, they were hesitant, but when they found out I had actual legal ownership of land the HOA falsely claimed, something changed. I wasn't just another angry homeowner anymore. I had power. One neighbor, an older man named Tom, said, "I've been wanting to sue them for years, but didn't know where to start." I told him, "Start with your title deed." We found another irregularity, then another. Turned out, Karen and her little HOA board had been enforcing rules on properties they didn't fully control. Worse, some of the rules weren't even legally valid under state law. So I kept buying tiny parcels, utility easements, slivers of land the HOA had ignored for decades, and all of it right under their feet. I hired a real estate lawyer under an LLC so my name never showed up. I wasn't just collecting land, I was surrounding them with it. Then I did the unthinkable. I filed a petition to join the HOA board. Legally, as a landowner in the community, they couldn't stop me. Karen was furious. "You don't belong here," she said at the next board meeting. I replied, "Neither does your patio. Technically, it's on my property now." That shut her up. For the first time, she looked unsure, because she could feel it. The ground beneath her, literally and legally, wasn't hers anymore. It all came to a head at the next HOA meeting. Karen sat at the head of the table like she always did, smug, confident, clipboard in hand. What she didn't know was that half the people in the room were now on my side. People I'd helped fight fines, fix deeds, reclaim their homes. One by one, I handed out documents, county maps, title transfers, surveyor reports. A full, legal packet proving that large portions of the land under her house, her backyard, and even the HOA's communal space belonged to me. The room went silent. Karen turned red. She stood up, pointed at me, and shouted, "This is a scam. You can't do this. This is my neighborhood." I calmly responded, "Actually, according to the county, it's my land, and you've been trespassing for years." She tried to laugh it off. "You can't prove that in court," she said. My lawyer stood up. "Oh, we already did. Here's your court date." Her face dropped. I didn't have to yell. I didn't have to threaten. I just handed her the truth on paper. And for the first time, she had no control. Within a month, the court ruled in my favor. Karen was ordered to remove any structures that crossed into my property. That meant her patio gone, her fence gone, her precious HOA garden bulldozed, and the cherry on top. The HOA was fined for mismanagement. They had to hold a re-election. I ran for president. I won, Karen. She moved out a few weeks later. No goodbye, no apology. Just silence, the same kind my grandpa got while he was dying, and now I own. The land she once ruled over. The day the trucks came to tear down Karen's patio, I stood on my porch, right where my grandpa used to sit, rocking gently in that old wooden chair she once said didn't meet HOA standards. I watched as the boards cracked, her garden got uprooted, and the fence came down piece by piece. I didn't smile, I didn't cheer, I just breathed. For the first time in months, maybe years, the air felt still, peaceful, like the house was finally exhaling. The HOA is different now. It's not perfect, no system is, but it's fair, transparent, human. We put in a community garden, where her fence used to be. Kids ride bikes again. People wave. The fear she planted, gone. I even put up a small plaque under the big oak tree in our yard, in memory of Joseph Carter, who built this home and gave it heart. I wish he could see it, but in a way I think he does. Every creak of the floorboards, every sunrise over the porch, they're all little reminders that he's still here. And as for Karen, she vanished, left the neighborhood without a word. I don't know where she went. I don't care. What matters is that my grandfather's home is safe. His legacy was threatened, but now it's protected by the one person who loved him enough to fight for it. And to anyone out there dealing with a power-hungry HOA, or someone who thinks they're untouchable, remember this. Sometimes the best revenge is owning everything they thought they controlled. I didn't set out to destroy anyone. I just wanted to protect my grandfather, our home, and what he stood for. But sometimes when people push too far, the quiet ones push back harder. If you've ever felt powerless in the face of someone abusing authority, you're not alone. Whether it's an HOA, a boss, a neighbor, or anyone who thinks they're untouchable, remember, knowledge is power. And when you stand up, not with fists, but with facts, the whole game changes. If this story hit you in any way, if it made you mad, made you tear up, or made you want to stand a little taller, then share it. Leave a comment. Tell me your story. Because trust me, you're not the only one who's had to fight back. And sometimes, all it takes is one voice to remind the Karens of the world that we're not afraid of them anymore. Thanks for listening, *.